About a month ago, we put some sponge filters in to test the Aquarium Co-Op air pump against a Whisper 40, really common air pump. You can see him here running behind me. It's time for us to do some follow-up on this very simple test. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today it's time for follow-up on the Aquarium Co-Op versus Whisper air pump challenge with this little sponge. Now, as a refresher, this experiment's really simple. We have a canister filter that used to be on this 29-gallon tank behind me. We've placed that with two sponges, both the medium coarse Aquarium Co-Op sponge, both running a Zis Airstone, same length of tubing. All very simple, just the difference being the two different pumps. We let the canister stay on for a week, just to help build up our bioload and our beneficial bacteria in these two sponges. And then from there, I turned all the equipment off and just let the sponges run, well, the heater, but let the sponges on their air power run instead of relying on the canister filter. It's been about a month, and what we're going to do is a really simple test. We're just going to pull them out, use this handy white bucket here, fill it with some water, and see roughly to the eye about how much detritus comes out of each one. They've been sitting on the same side of the tank, as you can see here, so they should be getting roughly similar amounts of gunk in them. So what we're going to do is just compare, and that should give us a rough idea, using the same equipment, of about the differences in the airflow if we were to put them in something like a 29-gallon, 20 longs, even your 10s probably, most of your reasonable sized tanks, and just going to probably even give you a good guess of what it would do in, say, something like a 40 breeder. So, with that being said, we need some clean water in this, and we're going to start with our first sponge. So here we are with the Co-Op sponge. You're going to see a little bit of detritus that fell in from when I first just moved it. I didn't do this in any, super intelligent way. I just pulled it off, but let's get an idea for how much we've pulled up in this. And there's a bunch that's, floating around the tank from removing it, so this is definitely not perfect, right? Just keep in mind, it's a lightly stocked 29-gallon with two different coarse sponges doing the work for about 3 weeks alone, and a month if you can count the week with the canister filter still running to help build up their bioload. So there we go. That's pretty well squeezed out. And you can just kind of see rough water. It's not super dark. Good amount of dirt. So what I'm going to do is rinse this out, put this sponge back in, and then we'll go to the sponge that was on the Whisper. Right. Here we are with the sponge that was using the Whisper. So we'll start this. You can see a little bit of detritus already. Oh, quite a bit more coming out of this one. Okay. So I feel like you can see an obvious difference in the water, right? About the same amount of time just doing this, same amount of water in the bucket, roughly. Significantly darker. So this sponge, powered by the Whisper, was holding quite a bit more than the one powered by the Co-Op. Now, this is a super simple test. It's not hyper scientific, but it gives us an idea of two things sitting side by side in the same tank, kind of roughly what we'd be dealing with. Well, there you go. There's our comparison test. So far, initial results, the Whisper 40 looks like it holds more flow at depth, because we saw quite a bit more detritus come out of the sponge filter powered by the Whisper 40. This isn't perfect, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of particulate layer in the back here. And that's just stuff, I did a very simple, just pulled the sponge out, squeezed it out, and this is not super scientific, right? Squeeze it out in the bucket, we're just visually looking at things. But I think you can see a difference between the two. So now what I've done is I've put the Whisper up front, and the Co-op in the back. And we'll check for another month and see what happens, just to rule out any positional difference. So if what we see is that the sponge in the back always has more detritus, then we know it's not a matter of flow. But if we see that it is both times the one powered by the Whisper, we know that the air pump's flow is significantly stronger at depth. And we saw some information about this, about some of the differences at depth in the previous video, which we'll have a link up in the corner. But this just gives you a good idea of what we're looking at. So we'll have this running for another month, and we'll just see what the results are then. For now, it picks up good detritus. Like, we saw a good amount of stuff in there, especially considering there's 2 sponge filters on 2 different air pumps in a single tank. You'd probably see even better if you were doing just one. And it's holding a reasonable amount of detritus, but not too much, so it's not like we're risking clogging it. So I don't think this shows that, like, it's not as good. I think this just shows that the flow rate is a little less at depth compared to something designed for a 40-gallon tank. But if I recall correctly, this isn't designed to power a 40-gallon tank specifically, right? It can, just not designed where a 40-gallon is like the primo spot for that particular air pump, where the Whisper 40, that's what it's designed for. So with that being said, what are your thoughts? For those of you who've had a Co-op pump now for a little bit longer, let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts on it? Do you like it? Have you found any interesting issues with it? Let me know. I'm really curious to see what your guys' results have been. If you enjoyed this video, give it a little like, maybe share it with some friends, whatever it may be. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.